So that's something that we have to do. All right, welcome back. We are Comp 229, Web Application Development, and it's week 6, part 3 of our video series. And today we're talking about Authentication Navigation. So up until now, we have installed Passport, Passport Local Mongoose. We've created our user model. We've added authentication views and routes, and we've even added a route guard to prevent users from going to routes that need authentication. So what are we doing in this video? Also the components you need to complete your assignment too. We're here. We're able to log in and log out. If I perform a log out, so if I just go up here and just say log out, then this all should work. We can't tell though. There's no visual feedback to tell us that indeed we've logged in or logged out. We need to provide that for the user up at least in the navigation bar. So let's do that. So I'm going to go into our partials, and we're going to go into our main nav. And a couple things. We want to put them in here. So we want to send more information into the main navigation. All right, so that's where it's going to go, into these links. But in order for us to send more information, we need to have that information somehow sent over in a from the controller. So the index controller that we have right now, up until now, we haven't needed to send in user information at all, right? And now we're going to have to change that. So let's go back into our index controller. Here it is. Now we do have our user model available. We didn't have that before. So what we can do now is, alongside with putting the title through, or sending the title across, we can also send the display name. Let's do that. So display name, and that'll be rec.user. If rec.user exists, then let's, rec meaning the requested user. We want to send the display name in, or nothing, one of the two. So basically, if there's no user, then we'll just send a blank string. We'll still send across the display name object, just might be empty. All right, so that's kind of the strategy behind this. So let's just pull this in, and I'm just going to add in this part to all the other ones, because we have to add it in for the about page and the products page, and we're going to have it for services and contact and the rest. Okay, so that's kind of it. We already have it for the display login page, as well as the display register page. We have all this stuff going through, but we had to add it in as well for the rest of it. Okay, so let's do that now. Let's see if we've got enough. So that's the first part. First part is adjusting our routing, so we have that piece of information. Okay, now that we have that piece of information and we've sent it in the route, what we need to do is we need to adjust our view, so that way we can have the next piece. And let's just get into that. So again, what I want to do is we want to add a conditional list item is what we're really trying to do. So if I go to main nav, and now that we have, these are our fixed list items, home and about and products, but we want to have a conditional list item that only pops up, as an example, when the user is logged in or logged out, almost like a toggle. So when the user is logged in, it's going to show the logout link. When the user is logged out, it'll show the login link, right? So that way it'll give us more flexibility. Let's put that in there down in here. So here is another link. I'm just using the contact as a template. And so what we're going to do is, again, we're going to have this list item here. I'm just trying to think if it's best to do this or just start from scratch with all the things we have to do. I think maybe it's best we have a navbar text item, because these are just going to be navbar text for display name. You know what? Let's just do it from scratch. So we'll start like this. So we're going to say if type of, and when we check type of display name. So display name is the name, the object we're sending in. If that's equal to string, right? So that's the type of, and display name exists. So both those two things are good to go. Then remember, we kind of do this part all at once. So if the display name exists, this first part we're going to do, we're going to create a list item. Let's make it so that we're looking at a HTML page now, again, just to help us with some formatting. So a list item with a class of navbar text. Okay. Inside that, we're going to have an I tag with a class of FAS, FA-large, and then FA-user. That's the user object. All right. So we're going to have a little user thing. We're going to say something like welcome to the user. So for example, the display name is what we want to put in there, right? So display name. Okay, so that's what it's going to do. It's going to say, okay, so if the user exists, if it's a string and it exists, then we're going to show, hey, welcome, whoever you are, admin, as an example. And that's what this list item is going to be, okay? Only when they're logged in, or if they exist. And that's going to be the first part, okay? At the same time, so it's still if the display name exists, we're also going to put another list item, right? A list item that is a nav item, if I can put in, so nav item. And inside the nav item, we want to put an anchor tag with a class of nav link, kind of like how we have it up above. Inside that, we want to have an I tag with FAS, FA-large, FA-sign-out alt, which is like the sign out icon. And let's just space that in. We're just going to make this over a couple of lines here, just so that way we're good to go. So the list item is going to be at the bottom along with the I tag. We'll just split it here. The href for the anchor tag is going to be login. So log out. So that's going to allow us to log out on the link here. This is going to provide an icon, and what we need is some wording. So log out is what it's going to say, right? And that provides us with a couple of list items when the user is logged in, okay? However, what happens when the user is not logged in? Let's put an else statement in there. So else. And again, we want to put in the bottom, the bottom portion, if I can do this properly. Okay, so that is the bottom. Maybe we closed off the brace properly. There we go. Okay. So else, if the user is not logged in, then we want to make a list item with a class of nav item, and we want to show inside there an anchor tag with a class of nav link, as an example. And inside that, we want to have an I tag with a class of FAS, FA-large, and then FA-sign-in alt, okay, which provides what we need there. Now, by the way, if you're not getting all those completions, it's probably because you haven't set your page to HTML. I know people have been asking about that, how you get completions. A lot of this is Emmet, and again, you would have learned that if you did your installation of Visual Studio Code. All right, let's continue. So this one would be a login link, All right, so this is still good. Nav item, nav link. And then, of course, we need some wording for that. So it's login. And again, that will only be available to us. It will only appear when we're logged in or logged out. It's conditional. So these entire 3 list items are conditional upon a login or a log out. Let's just make sure that we have some good formatting for this so that it looks good. There we go. All right, cool. Let's test this link out by going back to our pages. So here we are, and if I refresh, we should see a login link now. There we go. So kind of neat. If I click login, it's going to take us to our login page. We can log in as admin and press login. And then now we have an issue because it's not detecting my my page. If I go back to contact, I do have this, welcome admin, but I don't have that when I go to the books page because the books page doesn't transport that information in there. Also, it's pretty ugly when I go to contact. Like welcome admin is like massive, right? And it doesn't look really nice. I'm not happy with the spacing. You can adjust this, but you can see the logout link there and so on, which is pretty cool. All right, so let's fix that with the books. So the books link needs to be fixed. That's the books router. Okay, and then we can figure out what's happening with our navbar text and why it looks so terrible, right? Because our navbar text should not be terribly ugly the way it is. And I'm wondering if it's because I have messed up. I think I did. What's happened is, okay, I see what's happened. This part is in the wrong spot. This part shouldn't be here. It should be next to my list item, like this. The I tag is something that I kind of put in the wrong spot. If I just save that, and I go back out to here, and let's say go to products, then now it looks better. Right, so that's good. The other thing we can do is we can color this, make it green, or add a different kind of style to it, or whatever. Totally fine. We can use a little bit of CSS for that. Okay, so now inside of our routing for our book, so this is for the book controller, right? One thing we don't have is user information for this because we can't send anything over into our controller. Let's take a look at our book controller. Here, our book controller doesn't have access to the user information, right? Which is why when we render, we're not sending over a user. And we have to change that, right? If we want to have that same functionality, we have to also have our user model that's in here as well. Okay, so that's something that we have to do. What we can do is we're just going to put it in here. So book list, we're going to send the book list, title, and so on, as well as the display name. So display name. And again, we'll use that same syntax. Request user. If the user exists, then send over the request.user.display name. Otherwise, send nothing. And I think this is getting pretty long for one long thing here. Long line might be difficult. So what we're going to do is going to split this over a couple of lines, just so that way you can see it a little better. And we'll put this kind of in a vertical stack here. All right, so there we go. So there's kind of our render, and we need to do the same thing when it comes to rendering anything else. We need to take this part right here and add it in to anything else we're going to render. So let's continue going down in here. Okay, so there's another one. When we book edit, we want to also do that part. Okay, so there's the rendering of that, as well as just skipping through to see if there's anything else that needs to be shown, and anything else rendered. I think it looks pretty good. We're not rendering anything else. The rest is redirects, if I'm not wrong. There's a rendering here for the book list. The add page maybe also something we need to put in there. Okay, there we go. So those are the three things. All right, let's see if that makes a difference. Can we see the books, the admin? Let's make sure that we save everything and refresh. So, oh yeah, we logged out because now that we've logged in, we can see that we get a contact or book welcome admin, right? That's what it says, welcome admin, and we can log out. Again, I wouldn't mind if there's a bit of a space in here between this part and all this. We can do that with a bit of CSS. We can pad the welcome admin and give it a little bit of color or that kind of thing. For now, I think this is pretty good. It tells us where we're at and that we're logged in. That's important. We can also still access all this stuff, right? But even when we can still see these buttons and even the columns, I want to take away this information when we're not logged in, okay? So again, this should be conditional on a user having a display name. Now this is going to be a little trickier because remember that the display name is being sent across, right, for the display ad page and the book list. The book list is going to either have a display name or not, right? So that's the first thing. It's all throughout the application now. So if when we're rendering the book list, and this is going to be in the view, so let's go back into the list, book list, there it is. You can see that in the view we have these headers, right, as well as we have these links and the button, which is up here, right? So this is the button. So we want to make it conditional. So the way to do the conditional is if the user exists again. And I'm going to take kind of a page out of the other thing we've written. So let's take a look at that. Where we did the main nav, we have this conditional statement right here. I'm just going to grab this part and go back into the book list and just put that right in here. So I want to say if this is true, if there's a display name, if it's true, so we're logged in, that's all this is going to do. And this is kind of a trick because if we don't have a display name, then there is no user, right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to send it out. So let's just try one thing at a time. We're going to say, so this, if this exists, only then will we add an add button. Otherwise, we're just going to show the book list. All right, so let's try that. And refresh. No add button. But when we log in, if we log in with the right password, then you see the add book. So it's not even going to appear when we're logged out. Take a look, right? So books, nothing. You can't even go to the ad page. And if I try and do that, if I go to add, it's going to just take me to log in. So this is kind of the root guard that we put into place last time. All right, so let's do the same thing now for a couple things. I don't even want to see the columns come up, if we don't have that. So again, I'm going to take the same thing and put that before the columns. We'll say if this is true, then cool. If not, don't show those because we don't want to show the columns even. We want to adjust our layout a little bit when we don't have a user. Okay, just a little bit. We'll see how that looks. We may have to leave the columns in, but we'll see how that goes. And again, it's just about layout and how that's going to look. So let's do the same thing with the buttons. So the buttons won't even appear to the user if the user is not logged in, right? All right, let's try that again. So now I'm going to go back to books. You can see that there's an empty column there. How'd that go? That's almost where we want it to be. So column center book list price. That's good. Good. Column header. That's interesting. that I have that extra. It could be because of the fact of my spacing. That might be the issue. But let's see how that looks anyway. So that's pretty good. I mean, I think it's, you see a column there, but you don't know what that is. And there's no way, I can't click on anything to take me to the edit. But however, when I log in, passwords, then we're good. We can see this kind of come up, right? Which is pretty good. So that these things pop up only when we're logged in. So again, that's not bad. And if I log out, go back to books, I can just see the book list, but I can't log anything. Again, the reason why we have this extra column is because we have spacing assigned for all this, and there's extra space assigned for this part. So what we could do if we really want to is adjust one of these columns to take up the rest of the space. Okay, so that's like I can absorb, if I really want to, we can have two conditional parts where this can actually go right around everything, so we can adjust our layout if we really want to. So example, we could do something like, if we want to be extreme, something like this, where I say, okay, well, if the column is, if the thing is there, then these are the columns. This is the layout. Let me just show you. I think you get it, but let's just make sure that it's explicit here for you. And then let's make an else statement. Right? And inside the else statement, so this is when you're logged in, right? And when you're not logged in, you don't have all these. Just going to copy everything for now, and then I'll adjust it. You don't have all this, and because we don't have this, we don't have the last two columns, we need to fill up 6 wide. So 2, 4, 6, and 4 is 10. So we need 2 more. We'll add 2 more to there. So we'll say that this will be 6 instead of 4 columns. So the description will take up more space, make it wider from that perspective. And we'll do the same thing on the other side. So we'll just kind of do the same thing over here. A little bit long and some duplication, but that's okay. Well, there's other ways to do that with the columns by putting in the column weight based on how many, and you can do that interactively with some calculations. I'm not going to do that here. So again, just spacing that in, and let's just align everything properly. So I'm just going to align those just a bit back and take that extra space out, and then we'll move everything to the right because that's all inside that block. And then what we'll do is we'll do an else statement, and here again, and we'll close off the else statement down here. Okay, so that's kind of this if. Here's the else, and inside the else statement, what we want is to go through what's going to happen here. So we're going to grab all of this, but not including the last 2 lines. So just this part. And we're going to show this. But with an adjusted 6-column book list description. All right, so that's kind of a little better. Let's see how that looks now. So if I refresh, we're going to see that it's wider. So so it's going to look literally like there's nothing there, right? And then as soon as I log in, so if I log in, our layout is going to change. It's going to show controls that we need, right, to edit and delete, right, as an example. So all these things will work still, okay? But when we're logged out, then you can see that those are gone, and it won't appear to the user like there's anything but a book list later on. And what we're going to actually do is, if we want to order or do anything else, like add to a cart or something, we can add additional controls and columns in here as we go forward. All right, so that is kind of making it so that we have some kind of navigation controls we can also show, I've also shown you here in this video how we can hide and show things conditionally if the user's been logged in. And this is going to be kind of the theme that we're going to use going forward with some of the things we're going to be doing with Angular. We're going to show and hide certain things if something happens. We're going to use an ng if. We're going to talk about that in the Angular section coming forward in the next week's videos, which is going to happen for week 8. Week 7, remember next week what's going to happen is you're going to have a midterm test, and the test is really a practical assignment that you're going to have the whole week to complete, which is kind of good. Okay, so that is this structure. And I think that's going to be it for this video. In the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about JWT and how we can add a JSON web token to tokenize our login and log out. And why? Because we're going to convert our Express site and prepare it. Want to start converting it as an API for Angular as we move into full CRUD. So this would be the last video that you're seeing right here when it comes to an Express site. So this will be your last one. We're not going to go into too much detail here. This will give you enough to get going with the things that you have: authentication, full CRUD, and so on. The one piece that's missing is a password reset. And again, you can look that up on the Passport documentation site. They have a lot of information about how to do a password reset, especially with Passport local mongoose. When we have an encrypted password, how does that work? So because you'd have to basically, all you're doing is updating the password with a new encrypted password, and that's what you're doing, right? Because we'll never know. You can't decrypt that. Again, it's not something that we're going to cover in this video, but we're going to go forward. So what do we cover in this video? Just as a recap, let's get into that again before we go. So what we did was we adjusted a couple of things. We adjusted our routes. So if you looked at the index route, actually it's the index controller. In the index controller, what we did was we added this additional piece of information that we're sending forward into the each of the views. We're just sending in some display name information. If the display name exists, we know that the user's been logged in. So that's kind of the way we're doing it here. And then conditionally, if the user's been logged in, we're going to show or hide different pieces of the nav bar as well as different information throughout. And that's it for Authentication Navigation. We'll see you in the next video.